And I'll call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Sammy. Second from Ben. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comment? Hearing none, moving on to new business, item A, proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Okay, so this is kind of the beginning of our budgeting process. We need to, I believe it's April, we may have a budget in front of city council for approval for our, fiscal year that starts in July. So this is kind of the first go around. Nicole's put a lot of work into this. So kind of hats off to her, and she's the one who receives all the glory in this. But this year we've done a budget narrative to lay out kind of why we did what we did, what each section's for. So you should have that budget narrative in front of you. And then we've also created two different budgets. One budget where we do get the RAP grant and another budget where we don't get the RAP grant, because that significantly impacts our spending over fiscal year 25-26, assuming, we get the RAP grant. That's almost $500,000 more spent on a match for that grant. So we're just gonna walk through that budget narrative and we'll walk through the budget narrative and go through the line items, kind of explaining what each of them are and why those numbers are selected. So we'll just get right into it. The miscellaneous income, that's mostly our permits that we do. So vendor permits, seating permits, small little fees like that. And we'll see that kind of uptick in our actual budget for this year in the spring, once all the restaurants put in for seating permits and are charged. But kind of $200 is what we're projecting for next year. That's what we did this year. We really don't expect that to change. We don't have a huge influx in permits. So that's a revenue area for us. Interest income, we're over that this year simply because we transferred to Michigan class halfway through the budget year. Next year, we're projecting kind of what we did for last year. That could potentially change just with now being fully vested in Michigan class. We could expect a higher interest rate than what we were earning with the West Shore Bank account at the beginning of last year. So that's something that could potentially change, but for right now, we've kept it at where we budgeted last year's amount at. Grant revenue in the budget narrative, we received $75,000 for that MEDC facade grant in December of 23. And then we have to request the other $75,000 by October of this year. So we'll be requesting that in September of this year to make sure that we get all of it in, and that's to pay out those MEDC grant awardees. So Spicer Group, Golden Stag, Bluefish, Dwelling Realtor, and then the Elks. So those are the businesses that are going to be awarded the MEDC grant. Right now, we only have Spicer's project awarded, so we still have $165,000 to award in MEDC funds for this coming year. So we'll have that grant income. TIF revenue, these are all projections from the city. So what we budgeted for this year's TIF revenue, whether it be TIF revenue, delinquent taxes, or local community stabilization authority share, that is all projections that come from Ed. Right now in this proposed budget, these are all rough estimates because Molly, the assessor, hasn't gone through and done the taxable value for this year. We're expecting to get those hard numbers back sometime in March, and then we'll have a more accurate read on what our TIF revenue is going to be this year. And so is there any questions so far? That's kind of our income category last year.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. So this one is last year's.
Any reason why we should expect a decrease in TIF revenue?
So we're actually projected to get almost $25,000
So what's the
more
middle-
total revenue.
Middle column is
It's the delinquent taxes that.
The middle column.
middle column is
Middle column is what we currently budgeted.
per budget.
Yeah, so this is current budget, this is actual, and then this is our 25-26 budget.
Okay.
And Ed projected a $24,000 increase to TIF revenue, a slight decrease in delinquent taxes, and then the same for the local community stabilization authority sharing. And so that does increase our overall budget by about 20,000 for next year. And so that's really the income category. Those are all of our revenue streams that we have. Is there any questions up to this point? Specifically regarding kind of where we put that at or what each category is really for. Oh, okay, so we'll just move on right to expenses. Expenses for next year, we're going to start with advertising and promotions. We budgeted 15,000 similar to this year. Underneath that advertising category, we incorporate social district stickers. We have downtown banners. We have the Eagle contract. However, I know the Eagle contract that runs through July to August or October. I know there was some discussion of maybe not continuing that.
What's the Eagle contract again?
2,000. That's $2,000 for radio exposure for downtown, encouraging people to go to downtown.
Oh,
Manistee.
Eagle 101.5.
Yeah, but it's through July to October.
Thank you.
It's $2,000.
Radio advertising. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll also incorporate window coverings and that line item this year. And putting all that together, that's under 15,000. And if we don't continue the Eagle contract, we'd be well underneath that. But we do think having some wiggle room there, especially if we do anticipate to do like window wraps or music vault or anything like that, especially with the banner project with Sammy coming up, we don't have those hard numbers that was kind of projected with like 15 plus banners and some brackets in there. But that could increase depending on what Sammy and Brandon come up with from like a number standpoint with how many banners they think we should get.
Okay.
So design related costs, we're going to see some changes here compared to last year, specifically the facade program that we're projecting for this coming year. It was $125,000 this year budgeted. We're going to decrease that to 50 because of the streetscape project. This is a budget proposing we get the RAP grant. And remember with the RAP grant, there was still a small shortfall in the overall amount that we needed to cover for a match without dipping in below that 20% of annual expenses still being held in our fund, general fund rather. So take note that we dropped that to 50 to offset that shortfall that we would have for the RAP match grant. City service agreement that would continue this. We're assuming that it continues this year at the same rate. Downtown decoration, we budgeted 40,000 again. And that incorporates spring flowers, winter garland and bows, ice skid melt. This year we had the event trailer in there, which was, we put up like $11,000 towards the event trailer overall with the purchase of the trailer and the items inside. This year we don't expect any giant expense for the event trailer outside of wrapping the trailer. So that's only going to cost maximum $4,000. So that's kind of, we're not expecting as many expenses this year as we did last year, simply because the event trailer was such a large project this year. So we budgeted 40,000 again, but we expect that it's not going to be, that's to give us some wiggle room with unexpected expenses that could come up with the event trailer. And if we wanted to pivot and do something different with flowers and planters. So that's what that line item is really for. Is there any questions so far? No, okay. So MEDC facade grant, as I said earlier, we still have about 165,000 to pay out. And so all those projects have to be done by March of 26. So we will have to spend all the MEDC monies that we had come in with both of those $75,000 chunks.
And it's all spoken
March of
for.
26. Yes, it's all spoken for if those projects are executed. And if those projects aren't executed and it's the default of the business, then we still get to keep those funds according to the MEDC's grant agreement with us.
Is that as long as we reallocate them within that period of time?
You don't have to reallocate them in that period of time. It's just they don't say that it has to specifically go to any project. I'm assuming we would just wrap it back into our facade program, but it doesn't explicitly state that. It just says if somebody defaults or is delinquent, just doesn't do the project or does less than what the project was stated, then we get to keep the difference because it's not on us for defaulting.
Okay.
Andrew, was the Z's cart rental one that's moving forward?
Yep. So that was awarded a grant this year. To my understanding that they're still on track to execute that project over 25. So. We did create a new line item for all the different years of facade program because it was getting really, really complicated to just keep that into one budget line item. So we've broken it out into facade, WDC facade program 25, 24, 25, and then we'll have a new facade budget line item that says 25, 26. Just to keep all our numbers straight. And so 24, 25, we budgeted what was awarded. So we'll have to pay that out. And most likely the fall of 25 is when most of those projects are going to wrap up. So that's kind of a necessary number that isn't in flux at all. Moving on, next area of expenses is office related expenses. We have our bank service charges and our office operating expenses. The bank service charge is currently $364 in fiscal year 24-25 up to this point. But we finished bank fees being $723 in 23-24. So in our last complete fiscal year, you can expect probably $400 more of expenses coming in this year. So we've kept that at 800 again, and that seems to be appropriate for what we're on pace for this year. And then office operating expenses is 5,000, and that's really insurance, professional development, some subscriptions like a Zoom subscription that allows us to record these meetings, and also to do the Michigan Downtown Development Association conference every year that we have budgeted for like $250. So the insurance is where a large portion of that budget is spent. But again, $5,000 seems to be appropriate on how we're on track this year to spend what we did last year. So we're suggesting keeping that the same. Payroll and contracts. So this, I can recuse myself if we want to have a discussion regarding the economic development contract fees. That's $20,000 a year, but the contract for that 3-year contract comes up in December of 25. So the board may want to have discussions regarding that. The executive director contracts $80,000 a year. And then we are proposing eliminating the event coordinator contribution that had $10,000 in it, just because there's no real legs to that. And again, regarding the RAP grant funds with that shortfall, we really want to consolidate and try to keep this budget tighter, just because we are going to have obviously a large spending amount at the end of this year if we do get the RAP grant. So is there any questions regarding the payroll contracts and services up to this point? Again, the economic development is coming due December 25. So that'll have to be discussed. Any questions? Okay, moving on. So professional fees and expenses. These have been fairly standard across the board. The accounting fees is the $425 a month to Richards McDougall. Legal fees, we really haven't touched any legal fees. Just regarding, our contracts are already in existence and have been reviewed and have been in circulation for like facade programs and all that, have been reviewed in past years. So we just haven't had a whole lot of legal expenses, but keeping it at 5 is probably safe. We have no idea what's coming down the pipe. This year something may come up where we need contracts to be reviewed, or may need an attorney's input. Annual audit, so that was $85 more this year. The actual due to was that an unexpected addition, Nicole, to why that was 85?
No. In all honesty, they haven't provided us with a receipt yet that per the contract, which I have pulled up in front of me, it should be 2,000, so that's why we remained at 2,000.
Minor.
Engineering fees, we are, even if we get the RAP grant, we still want to keep $50,000 in engineering fees, assuming that there may be some other engineering costs related to the streetscape that aren't covered in the RAP, because we're still gonna have to pull what's happening in the RAP program along the rest of River Street, so there may be some expected engineering cost in that. So just to play it safe, we do want to budget monies for that category.
Where are we, what line item are we placing right side design in for their portion of design for streetscape?
It goes under engineering fees. All this work that they've
Okay.
done has gone under engineering fees to this point.
Good.
So yeah, they can continue to do, we'll continue to put that there. Because I'm expecting that we'll probably have to do more payments with Brandon, just because I know that initial proposal, like we're still kind of on that first phase, but if we want to do the marketing and communication plan that he proposed that we do when we go public with the whole streetscape plan, that's something we probably want to do with Brandon. So yeah, that would go under engineering fees. So again, this is the budget, assuming we get the match. So or RAP. So we have to match it. We have to spend the $495 if we were to get awarded the RAP. And so that's a fairly large expense, and it's hard to get what looks like a clean budget when you look at the total bottom line here, because we also have to assume that we're paying out $240 for the West Riverwalk Plaza. And that's been budgeted for the last 2 years, but just has never been asked upon, but we continue to budget for it. So at the end of the day, we're pulling over $700,000 out of our general fund, and going way over our actual revenue. So the bottom line looks, go for it.
You're supposed to show the fund balance coming into the P&L to have a balanced budget. As revenue or income of some kind.
Yeah, we can do that. I was asking Ed is there a better way to list this? So if that's, we can continue to look into that to see if we can list that general fund as revenue, so it doesn't have a bottom line that's spending, $800,000 over what our income is, but that's because.
What does the law say on balanced budget for Michigan?
There are some guidelines for that, but there's fund balance available.
Yeah,
So,
I'm saying you just gotta show it coming into the P&L as income or revenue.
and then show that there's a net
So it's
fund,
zero
that there's
balance.
still money available. So
Okay. We can look into that, because I was wondering the same thing, because I had to imagine there was a way to show it being balanced with
You're
general
taking it
fund.
off the balance sheet, running it through your P&L.
Okay,
you show an expense for the general fund, but it's because you budgeted for it, it'll show that you
okay,
have enough
gotcha.
revenue to cover the expense.
Gotcha. And so is there any question? This is the budget with RAP assumptions being made. So if there's no additional
I have
questions,
a quick question,
Yeah.
Andrew, at the bottom there. What is the West Shore Community College partnership for 20,000?
That is our rent fee
Yeah.
to use this space.
So the DDA is paying that in addition to the agreement with the chamber for services?
yes. So I know,
That had to do with when the property was redeveloped. And that's how they contributed to
Yeah, I don't think it's,
facade or something like that.
yeah, I thought it was for the parking.
Yeah, I don't recall it being used for this space,
I think the West Shore Community College partnership is for the
parking spots,
parking.
because they were having some difficulties with that finance
Yeah.
too.
we can look into that more here to make sure that it is for the parking. I know it's related to the development of this building. So whether it be considered rent or our financial
It was
contribution when it was redeveloped.
separate agreement from the Riverwalk Plaza.
Yes, yeah, it's completely separate. Okay, but so, and then we'll also be eliminating the revolving loan fund program line item, obviously now that that's with Venture North. But we're gonna continue to push that program out on our website and make sure that people know about it. So Venture North gets traction with people utilizing those funds.
Andrew, I'll just point, the RAP match grant, so professional services for engineering, a lot of that actually for the capital expense. I think there's 60,000 that was going to the wrap design, well, at least the Spicer portion of it. So I think if we get awarded it, we just need to put that into projects, at least the portion that's for the actual,
So you
Capital
would
amount.
like to see this move?
broken
down
out, because
projects?
there's an amount that was paid to Spicer and to Right Side Design, and that's for professional fees, and
Yeah.
then there's actually the capital amount, and the city's contributing, so is the DDA, but then that would be just for the budget, I think. At some point, if we get awarded, we can clean that up.
Okay.
Nowhere on here is our fund balance visible, correct?
I don't think our fund balance is visible on this budget sheet.
Okay.
That's in our compiled financials. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, if we want, we could pull up
The
side
balance.
by side
Okay.
balance sheet. But then, so the budget, that is without us getting the RAP grant, some small changes are made where we increase the facade program to 75 from 50 that we had budgeted if we were awarded the RAP. We still brought that down simply because of the expenses that we have, assuming that we pay out the West Shore Plaza and that we're still prioritizing streetscape. We're still gonna wanna continue to prioritize the streetscape without the RAP. So we'll wanna kind of reallocate some funds, away from the facade program so we can actually execute the streetscape project, even if we don't get awarded the RAP grant. And then the only other change is, we eliminate the RAP match funds, revolving loan fund. And so those are really the only changes from assuming we get the RAP and don't get the RAP. But we're still over because of the event plaza going in.
It would be nice to see our fund balance, because we've also, the streetscape committee has also talked about possibly some short-term solutions.
Yeah.
And resetting pavers and that sort of thing. So next time we meet on this, if we could see
Okay.
that.
Fund balance, just email me that. Would you like to see it right now? We can pull up. the
No, it's
compiled
okay. I
fund.
mean, this is good for now.
Yeah. So is there any, questions? Again, I'm happy that Nicole constructed that budget narrative. I think it helps kind of lay out where the expenses are, why we have what we do on our budget. And then also being able to have two different budgets, assuming that we don't get the RAP. And then Tyler, thank you for that suggestion about, showing that general fund as revenue somehow in the budget. So we're looking at how to do that.
Okay, great.
A process question.
Yes.
So this is the beginning of the process. The end of the process is submitting the budget to city council.
Yeah.
How many steps between here and there?
So from there, we'll have another special meeting, just like in conjunction with our regular meeting to continue discussion, and then, we'll get the revenue on there. I don't believe we need to have a public hearing, but there'll be a public hearing at city council for the budget. So once we want it to be sent to city council, and once we're happy with it, we'll approve it, it'll go to city council, they'll have a public hearing. But between here and sending it to city council, it's really however many times we want to meet and until we feel comfortable with what we have laid out.
One thing we could do is if we want to, we could have a subcommittee discuss this in a smaller setting and come back with recommendations. I think that's allowed, if there's desire for that.
I think filling a barrel with rocks keeps coming into my head. You put the big boulders in first, and then, you dump in the little stuff. I can't see the big rocks, and it's a presentation thing.
Okay.
We keep coming around to saying, where's the fund balance? Where's the fund balance? What are we talking about bonding for? And then contingencies around that. I don't know right now how to present that. All I know is that ain't it. And so, but I don't want to gum up the process between now and the time that we have to submit. I like the subcommittee idea.
Okay.
So does
Just
anybody-
your executive committee, I mean, unless you just, want another group to
I would
get
just say
formulated.
exactly it.
Yeah. And then just do like Tyler said, just a standard P and L.
Yeah.
That allows us to see what our fund balance is. Usually, that's your first thing, your revenue in. and stuff like
Okay,
that.
so I'll just say that we'll form a subcommittee. If everybody's in agreement, it would be the executive committee. So me, you, secretary is.
Sammy.
Deanna, Sammy, Bruce.
That's me.
and
I didn't
yourself.
want to dump
Okay,
more
all right,
on
thank
you
you,
guys.
sorry.
I didn't want to dump more on you guys, but it was just a thought. If you
Well,
need it
that's
already.
fine. Nicole, if you could help us schedule that, and it could be a virtual meeting as well, if that works better. So, good suggestion. Thank you. Okay.
And then, so then we have one other thing, and if that's kind of all.
Yeah.
We do have enough, and then, yeah, we'll get a meeting.
I don't think it's gonna gum up the process. It's just further input.
Design, just a design.
And then, so we do have one more thing on the budget. It's our social district sticker proposal. What we're proposing is 2,000 stickers per business annually. After they exceed the 2,000 stickers, that will be the responsibility of the business owner to buy stickers, and we have the right to distribute that digital file that contains the social district.
How many businesses currently are participating?
12.
Currently have 12 with the possibility of 2 more additions.
So that puts us, 3,000 stickers is roughly $590. So this would be estimated to cost $4,730 to give business 2,000 stickers every year. And then anything exceeding that is on their own.
Lindsay, is that reasonable from your point of view?
My input.
Do you know how many you're using right now, approximately per year?
I really don't know. I know for me, it's over 2,000, but that's with the block party. I mean, I think with the block party alone was over 500. So, I know we'll exceed the 2,000, but I mean, like places like the Vogue, I mean, there's, I know they don't really go through very many. So I think 2,000 is a good number. And I know Jack Pine will print them for a very reasonable price because I did have to do that.
Hopefully they're not going to waste. I mean, if the vote's not using very many, maybe they give them to Lindsay if she's
That's
going.
right.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I've
like
had to
Mr.
go over there many times.
Okay.
Mayor might go too.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
What does that break down per business then?
So it'd be $500. Again, they come in batches of 3,000. That 3,000 is $590. So kind of breaking that down, I mean, I guess we could assume it's maybe high 400s per business. But this is a program that helps give our downtown kind of just another amenity that nowadays people almost have this expectation of social district with how many communities have adopted it. And so I think it's a luxury and an amenity in our downtown that we want to continue and support, and doing less stickers that may discourage businesses from participating is something that I don't think we want to do as a DDA. But I mean, obviously that's up to the board, but that's my personal perspective on it is, if we're only giving 500 stickers and that causes, Africanos to say, oh, we're not going to do the social district anymore, I think that's taking away from that program that's supposed to increase vibrancy, foot traffic. And I view it as just another amenity within the downtown.
If we budget $5,000 and there's 14 businesses, it's about $350 per business.
I was a lot better at math than I am.
I did that on a calculator. It's $357. Thank you, though. All right.
So we are requesting a motion for that too.
I'll make a motion to approve the social district sticker proposal.
Thank you, Ben.
A second.
Second from Lindsay. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks for the presentation on the budget.
Yeah, and then we'll get a meeting together, review that, the exec committee.
Okay, public comment? Thanks again. Any additional board member comments? Sammy,
Just kidding.
you had your time.
I do have one
Yeah, yeah.
question. Salt.
Uh,
We buy a
it's
pallet
funny,
of salt?
Bill and I just were emailing about that. So the DDA purchased calcium chloride.
Yeah.
Bill, I asked Bill about that this week in an email, and he said that that was depleted after about 3
That's what I was
snowfalls.
wondering.
So that's why we're seeing rock salt.
Okay.
And we can, yeah, and in our services agreement, DDA pays for something other than salt, so. But there are some things we can look at, like, do we just do that right on River Street?
Yeah.
So we did try it, I mean, the spreader works with it, but it's, yeah, it's almost. It's just,
It was like,
Yeah, I believe it.
it was like $1,500
Yeah.
for a pallet of 50 bags. And after the first snowfall, Jeff was like, hey, we're like almost out. I don't even think it got to 3, Kyle. I think it was only like the first 2 snowfalls and it was depleted.
I guess it would have been nice, I didn't know
I didn't
that.
think it was gonna last.
It would have been nice to know that so we could have made a decision before
Sure.
now, but
Yeah.
we can look at that for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dogs appreciate it.
So is my office for a minute.
Right, yeah. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Bruce?
Second.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you all. Good rest